Welcome back to Confident Real Estate. I'm your host, JC. Today we're going to review the tips that you need to know if you're going to be successful investing in house flipping. I personally don't invest in house flips, and I'll get into why I don't invest in house flips a little bit later. But I do know a lot of people that invest in house flips, and they also invest in the buy and hold deals like I invest in. And they make a lot of money flipping houses, and they take that money and they go buy additional deals to flip, and they buy and hold deals to grow and diversify their portfolio, and they are killing it. They are making a fortune. So let's get into teaching you a little bit more about what you need to know before you go and do the same thing. And if you like the sound of that, you better hit that like button down below, because we are taking the time to get this information. I went and talked to a whole bunch of people to gather the information for you, so the least you could do is hit the like button, because who doesn't like making more money? So what does house flipping entail? Before you can start the process to get your first flip under your belt, you really need to understand the overall picture of how the process works, and it can be broken down into 3 phases. Step 1 is acquiring the property. It could take weeks and even months to find the right property to invest in for a house flip deal. Then you got to make the offer and start doing your due diligence. At the same time, you're going to be applying for financing unless you're paying cash for the deal, in which case, God bless you. And then after that, you have to actually close and take ownership of the property. Keys in hand, it is yours for better or worse. Step 2 is the renovation process. And if you want to see what that looks like, you can basically just watch HGTV, because they have about a dozen shows that focus primarily on the renovation phase of house flips. That said, it is actually the shortest piece of the entire process, although probably the most stressful, which you probably wouldn't believe if you watch a lot of HGTV. And that leads to step 3, the final phase of this whole house flip, which is selling the property. You got to stage it, list it, and sell it. And hopefully you will be selling it for a lot more than you paid to buy it and fix it up. And that's where you make your money. Make no mistakes about it, house flipping is not easy money. It takes time, a lot of effort, and some pretty hefty resources to get it accomplished. So you got to be prepared for that on day 1. You don't want to make an offer, have it accepted, and then try to figure it out. But before you go putting out offers on every deal you see in town, you really need to have an understanding of the market that you're actually looking to invest in. You have to have a deep understanding of your local market, and that requires understanding what are the up-and-coming areas. What are the amenities that people buying a home in that area typically look for? What kind of features? Are they looking for backyards? Are they looking for laundry rooms? Are they looking for garages? Things like that. And you have to know, most importantly, whether it's a buyer's or seller's market. You should also have a good handle on the local home prices, what the closing costs will be, what the property values are in that area, because you're going to have to budget each phase of the process. You need to know how much you're going to spend on the house that needs a flip. How much are the renovations going to cost you during that process? What are your carrying costs, which are things like real estate taxes, insurance, and even potentially your financing for the renovations and the purchase of the actual house that need to get paid every month between the time you bought the house and the time you sell the house. Some financing, lenders that specialize in fix and flip financing, may be able to float you a few months before they start collecting maybe interest-only payments, but that's going to come at a higher interest rate. In the meantime, real estate taxes, water and sewer, insurance, that needs to get paid every month, so you need to budget for it. And obviously, you need to know what is the market price going to be on the after repair value when you're done all your renovations. What are you expecting the property to be worth when you're done? Working with a local real estate agent will really help you get a better understanding of the local market that you're looking to invest in and do a house flip in. You obviously also need to prepare the appropriate comparables, or comps as we like to call them, And if you don't know how to do that or you need help, then you should click the link I'm going to leave down below for the entire video we did about how to calculate comps confidently. Next, you're going to need to prepare your team because house flipping requires a varied number of different skill sets, which include sales, contract negotiations, construction work, carpentry, accounting, building code knowledge, and a slew of others. Spend some time gathering reviews and talking to professionals so that you can start to put your team together. And if you've spoken with or find people who've done house flips in the past, then obviously having those types of people on your team is going to lead to a smoother flip for you as well. Some real estate agents have a little bit of a niche in finding and selling flips, both at the early stages when they look like garbage and at the end stages when they're geared and ready to sell as a finished product. Those kinds of real estate agents who have that experience may also know other professionals who you may be able to reach out to and get a sense of and start a conversation with. It'll obviously help you. Another option is apps like Thumbtack, which I've personally used and had some success with when it comes to finding people who can do the renovation work and other tasks that you need in regard to owning real estate. Some people use home advisors. I've personally never used them, but that's probably because everyone I know who's used home advisors has had a nightmare story to share with me afterward. Speaking of which, if you have any great resources that you've come across that you know of, like a Thumbtack, or nightmare sources like a home advisor, that's what the comments section is for down below. Please leave us a comment, share your story. Who doesn't love a juicy story? Share with the rest of us. Some other pros that you should really start lining up before you have an accepted offer on a property include people like an architect, a contractor, a home inspector, and a CPA. And you should start narrowing down your lender options as well, because financing is the most important part of any real estate investment that you do. And that leads perfectly into the next step. Know your budget. Understand how much money you have to invest in a flip, and then add 20 to 25% to that number, and that's what you really have to spend on your flip. So if you have $100,000 and you didn't create a buffer, then you really have, let's say, $80,000 to put into a flip, because that extra $20,000 is the 20% buffer that you should really have on hand. Because when it comes to flips, Murphy's Law applies. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Hopefully not, but you don't want to get caught in a rainstorm without an umbrella. Talk to lenders ahead of time and get pre-approved, because this will really help you even when you're negotiating a purchase of a property over other investors who haven't gone through that step to get the pre-approval and have their financing lined up. What's your credit score? Before you go out to lenders and start trying to get pre-approved, you better prepare your credit so you can get the best financing that's available to you. Whether you're financing the purchase, the renovations, or both, you have to understand that lenders are more stringent with investors than they are with typical home buyers. And the reason is because they know you're not moving your family into the property. And if something tragic happens or you just didn't budget well, they could get stuck with a house that's been gutted, and they don't want a shell of a house that's worth less than what you paid for it in the first place. So understand and make your life easier by preparing your credit so that the lenders find you a more appealing client to invest their money with. Since you know you're going to be held to a higher standard, make the process easier on yourself by paying down your debts, keeping your credit card balances as low as possible, zero if possible, and stay on top of your monthly payments that you're supposed to be making every month. Things like this will go a long way to lenders giving you the better financing options, which could include much lower interest rates, as well as lending you a lot more money than they would to somebody who has less qualified credit. Now remember, when you find a property, low-cost homes are not always the greatest deals. You got to remember to look for the basics in an area that you're investing in that you would look for even if you're doing a buy and hold investment deal. Are you looking in an area that has rising home values, employment opportunities, highly rated schools, Or is it an area where a lot of the surrounding streets have rundown homes as well, like the one you're buying? Is there a rise in crime rates and maybe lower than normal employment opportunities, and are the schools poorly rated? You could also go on the criminal sex offender registry and find the maps in your area to basically give you an understanding of who lives in the surrounding blocks around the house where you're buying to do this flip. Because at the end of the day, when you go to sell the house, the eventual buyer who buys the finished product from you is going to be concerned with the safety of the area where the house is located. So these are things you need to consider when you're buying the house to flip. Just because it's dirt cheap doesn't necessarily make it a great deal. Remember the old adage that it's always better to buy the worst house on the best street, because you will always come out ahead. As a rule of thumb, when you're buying a house to flip, you should always abide by the 70% rule. What is that? Well, I'm glad you asked. The 70% rule says that you should never spend more than 70% of the after repair value of the house, not including your renovation costs. So if you're going to buy a house that after you're done all the renovations, you think you could sell for $200,000, then you absolutely should not be spending more than $140,000 to buy that house. That leaves you a $60,000 cushion that your renovation costs are going to eat into, your closing costs when you sell are going to eat into, and whatever's left is going to be the profit. But you know you cannot go above 140, so you want to go as low as you can below that 140. But never above it, because then you'd be breaking the 70% rule, and you really don't want to do that when it comes to house flipping. This will really put you in a great position to at least walk away with the profit every single time. Whether it's a huge profit or a small profit, depends on you, your skill set, the people you've surrounded yourself with, and basically the property itself in general. But if you abide by the 70% rule, you should always walk away with at least some profit. And this is where working with a great real estate agent who has experience in flips can be very beneficial. It's also why you should take your contractor with you on a tour of the property anytime you have an offer accepted. Whenever you get a bid accepted, take your contractor and make sure they think the repair costs are going to be about in line with what you thought. And again, remember to add that buffer to protect yourself from the overages that are bound to happen pursuant to Murphy's Law. If you've ever had an interest in doing a house flip, but the whole process generally scares you, then I highly suggest you join an online forum like Bigger Pockets, where you can talk to other people who flip houses throughout the country. And then for your local markets, I highly suggest that you join a local meetup for house flippers in your area. If one doesn't exist, then you should start it. Even if you know nothing about how to flip a house, starting that meetup in your area will make you the key person, and you will meet people of varied experience levels. You'll meet contractors, people who fund fix and flips, other house flippers. You will share ideas. You will learn a ton. It can be immeasurable, the amount that you will gain from a local meetup. I belong to several in my area myself. Something for you to consider. As you hopefully gathered from this video, house flipping is not a quick investment, get-rich-quick scheme. It requires a lot of work and a lot of attention. It is exactly why I don't do house flips. I've been enticed to consider them in the past, but I've never pulled the trigger on one because it doesn't fit my investment model. I am very busy and I work long hours, pretty much 7 days a week, so it's hard for me to fit a flip into my schedule and do it successfully. But if it fits what your investment practice is, you should absolutely consider it. And as I said before, I know people who do a lot of flips and they take that money and they invest it in long-term investments like buy and hold multifamily deals, and that is how they grow their wealth and their portfolio exponentially. And they're funding it not with the money in their savings account, but with the money they make doing consistent flips several times a year. I hope you got a lot out of this video. If you did, please hit like, hit subscribe, and really take advantage of the catalog of videos that we are now starting to create. We've got a decent number of videos, probably 30, 40 videos at this point, They go into more depth on some of the general topics that we even discussed in today's video. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down below, and we always try to answer them and get back to you. We appreciate it. I appreciate you watching this video. Until next time, thanks for watching Confident Real Estate.